I think we'll go ahead and call the May 17th, 2022 Administration Committee meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Supervisor Long.
Present.
Supervisor Cook.
Present.
Supervisor Burning.
Present.
Supervisor Counter.
Present.
Supervisor Fiedler.
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Our next item is approval of the minutes from Tuesday, April 26th. Are there any changes to the minutes? No changes? All right, we'll let the minutes stand. All right, the next item, excuse me, is public comment. And for the agenda item number 2, if you have public comment on the resolution regarding the library, I'd like to hold that public comment to that agenda item. So if there's any public comment on any other items or topics? Looks like everyone's here for the library. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? All right. Move on to the business items. Financial report for April 2022, and I will turn that over to staff.
Thank you, Chair Cook. So in the packet, you'll see the financial report. So the financial report is for the month of April, or through the month of April anyways. And, well, you guys are all tenured members here of the county board. Normally, the standing committees, I'll probably go through it in a little bit more detail. But since most of you are familiar with these reports, I'll give you the abbreviated version tonight. The financial report's in the packet. Everything looks good. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Supervisor Long.
My usual question. So any recent surprises or anything that might be happening that you would not be expecting, good or bad? Anything along those lines that you might want to point out?
No, I don't think so. You got anything? No? Yeah, everything runs pretty smoothly here at the county, so. Yeah. Everyone's above average, and I forget exactly how the saying goes, but.
All right, no other questions about the financial report? Okay, we will move on to our next business item then, resolution approving agreement with members of the Hudson Area Joint Library. So members, as you see in your packet, there's a proposed resolution to address some of the funding challenges with the Hudson Area Joint Library. I think at this point in time, I'd like to take public comment on the item. So if you have, we didn't have anyone fill these out. Do we need to have these people fill these out for committees? No. All right, so if you would like to make public comment on this item, if you want to head up to the podium there. I don't think we necessarily need a time limit, just if you can be brief and share your thoughts, that would be great. Anyone have public comment?
Chair Cook, did you want me to maybe frame the issue first?
Sure.
And then maybe that'd give the public a chance to sort of digest and comment maybe on some of the areas of the project.
Sure, that
Right.
sounds good.
Yeah. So we have before you a resolution. We had tried really hard to get this resolution in front of the county board last fall in time for the budget. We really just ran out of time to do it. We worked closely with City of Hudson staff and members from Department of Revenue and DPI and Zimmerman's office to really try to hash out this concept. So what the concept is that we would take the state statutes that allow for rural library circulation and apply it in a way that is a unique concept. The state statutes don't specifically allow for this. The state statutes, though, according to Department of Revenue, also don't prohibit it. So it's not within the normal context of how the law is written. So it's a unique interpretation of it. So I'm going to say that up front. But what we would do is we would do our normal calculation of the library levy, just the way that we always do every year, which is rural circulation, somebody that doesn't have a library but checks out a book from a library, what's the cost for that circulation item. We basically add all those up across the entire county, come up with the value, divide that by all the municipalities that don't have a library of themselves, and we get a tax rate. It's one tax rate that we apply to everyone, though. Even though one township may check out a lot more books than somebody else, and different libraries have different rates per circulation, we come up with one tax rate countywide, and we apply that to everyone equally. So the way this agreement works is those municipalities that have a library ask for exemption from this library tax. So the 4 members of the Hudson Joint Library by this agreement would not ask for that exemption. So we would apply the same tax rate that we've already calculated against the equalized value of those 4 municipalities. So they would see the county tax rate increase from their prior year. It's going to increase by that county library tax levy. That amount that we collect, and it was 1 point whatever million it was, I don't remember the exact number offhand, and it'll be different every year, but that amount that we would collect, we would turn around and give to the Hudson Joint Library. We'd be a pass-through entity. So there's no involvement by the county in this, other than as the pass-through entity. So that's how we calculate and generate that amount. So some of the benefits of that are we go back to the agreement from 20 years ago, where rural circulation numbers from the 3 members that joined the Hudson Joint Library were promised that they would still get rural circulation numbers back to the other libraries in the county, and then that was stopped after 10 years or so. This agreement provides that we're still going to make that calculation whole. So we're going to deduct from the total that we calculated for the Hudson Joint Library for the 4 municipalities. We're going to deduct from that rural circulation from those other libraries and distribute that back as a whole. We've been making a modification for the last 6 or so years, taking part of it out of the Hudson Joint Library's calculation from 100% down to the 7% minimum state requirement, and distributing that to those libraries. So this brings that up to 100% redistribution back to them. And it's a small amount, and the reason I think it's viable under this agreement is the Hudson Joint Library, under this scenario, gets a lot more money than what the 4 municipalities have been contributing. So the total dollar amount of funding for the Hudson Joint Library is higher than previous years under the way that we would calculate this. So one of the questions would be, well, could we use a different tax rate for them? No, I don't believe we could. I think you have to use that tax rate. Could you increase the tax rate? Well, no, because then you would have to apply the higher tax rate against all the other municipalities. We have one county library tax rate. So there's some limitations in there of what we can do. I think there's a couple of drawbacks, though, too. I want to make sure that you understand those, so that there's pros and cons to both sides of every idea. And some of it is involved with risk because, like I said, this is a concept that's not specifically authorized in the state statutes. It's not specifically not authorized in state statutes. When we talk to Department of Revenue and DPI, they go, well, it doesn't say you can't do that. But what I can tell you is it's probably not within the intent of how the law was written. And so I worry that the state's going to come back and correct it and change the availability of the county and the joint library group members to do this. If that happens, so what happens to the funding of the Hudson Joint Library? We can only do this on a one-year basis because an exemption is an annual certification. So we can only make a one-year agreement. We can't make it any further out than that. And if the state changes the rules and doesn't allow that exemption anymore, and we say, well, you're going to have to go back and fund it a different way. So what did the 4 municipalities do with their library levy that they had? They're not required to give it up. Department of Revenue did say it's not a transfer of services, so they're not required to reduce their tax levy by that. Whatever they do with it is entirely up to those 4 municipalities. But if a year or 2 years or 3 years down the road, this is no longer an option for them, and we say, all right, go back and add it to your levy, what do they do? So I think that's a huge risk for the Hudson Joint Libraries funding long-term. So I just want you guys to understand the different risk levels that are involved in this. And if the state, for some reason, came back and said, yeah, that's completely not authorized, they have the ability to penalize the county. They can withhold the county's shared revenues to the full extent of an illegal tax that we levy. So they could do that to the county. I've tried to protect, and with the assistance of Corporation Counsel, the agreement we wrote is very much in favor of the county's protection, that if the state comes back and says that we're going to penalize you for illegally applying the library tax levy rules, we pass that cost back on through an indemnification in this agreement to the 4 municipalities. But that's a large dollar amount penalty that we're passing on to 4 of our local units of government. So that risk is out there also. So I just want you to be aware of that. I think that's about all I got.
All right. Thank you, Ken. So members, do you want to have a conversation before we allow public comment, or would you? All right, Supervisor Long.
A couple things. I think it's really important to point out that all the citizens in the municipalities that are not part of the Hudson Joint Library are not really going to be impacted by this agreement at all, other than the fact that this reimbursement arrangement excuse me, has been reinstated, so all the other libraries actually benefit slightly. So it doesn't have any impact on other libraries, or I should say it's a positive impact on other libraries. So I think it's important for all of the other municipalities and libraries to understand that. As far as the 4 municipalities, this is really, they're driving this. This is their way of trying to increase funding for the Hudson Library. And to me, on their behalf, I really think it's very simply a question of, do they want a library or not? And if they want a library, then they got to figure out how they can properly fund that library. And this agreement is recognizing it's a little novel, but it does allow them to increase the funding, and hopefully they would see fit to reduce their levy by the amount of their previous library tax, so that the taxpayers would see a fairly nominal net increase from the county. So I'm hoping that would be the case, but I think there's a risk there. I guess I would like to ask, we're fortunate to have the mayor of Hudson, Rich O'Connor, here, if they've had conversations about the impact on their levy, what they would plan to do, and if he has any other thoughts or ideas from the other 3 municipalities, if I can call on you.
Always smiling, aren't you? Madam Chair and members of this committee, thank you for allowing me to come up here and talk. I actually had no intention to speak here today unless there were questions that were asked. Supervisor Long, in fact, the city administrator and I had a conversation about levy today, and it would be our intention that we would not incorporate that levy that would be freed up into our budget. We want to make sure that this works and to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted with respect to the Department of Revenue, who more than likely is going to have some oversight of this after they see, as Ken had pointed out, this is a rather unique situation. And so we don't want to do anything to jeopardize that, so we have no intention whatsoever of utilizing that levy capacity in our budget. I can't speak for the other 3. If I could address one thing, I think, to bring some clarity here. When we had these initial discussions, county corporate counsel had brought up whether this was allowable under the statute. As Ken said, the statute doesn't say it's allowable, doesn't say it's not allowable. So we brought into the conversation Representative Shannon Zimmerman, who put us in touch with the drafter of statutes. And in fact, we got the drafter of statutes that drafted this section of the state statute. And that was an interesting debate that they had. But at the end of the day, the drafter said this is allowable under state law. And I think that, I can't speak for him right now, but I think at the end of the day, literally at the end of the day, the corporate counsel was in agreement with the drafter of statutes. How can you argue with the guy that drafted the statute? Secondly, we did want to make sure that we were covered with the Department of Revenue because they do have oversight on the levy capacity and how it's utilized. And we do have a letter from the Department of Revenue saying that this is permissible. So I don't know, do you have that, Ken? Is that part of the packet? Okay. Okay. Anybody else?
Any other questions? All right.
All right, thanks a
Thank
lot.
Yeah. Supervisor Long.
Yeah, it's my understanding, and also as further clarification, that 3 of the 4 municipalities have signed off on the agreement, but there is 1 remaining. And we certainly wouldn't want to move this forward to the full board until we were assured that all 4 municipalities had signed off on the agreement. So we're kind of stumbling into a little timing issue here. The 4th municipality is the Village of Hudson. It's on their agenda for their next meeting, which is on Tuesday, June 7th at 7 o'clock. So unless they have reason to call a special meeting or move their meeting, we likely would not be able to bring this forward to the full board on the June meeting. So I just wanted to clarify that timing issue.
Supervisor Burning.
Is it possible to approve this pending their approval?
I believe we could do that. Is that correct? Yeah.
And could we do that at both levels? Admin recommend for approval and then the county board at that
I'll
point
look to
also?
Corp Counsel.
I would say yes. The last sentence of the resolution indicates that Administrator Witt would have the permission to sign off on the agreement, and so the county board or this committee could approve it subject to all 4 member municipalities signing off on the agreement. And if we don't get that 4th signature, then Administrator Witt would not sign off on the agreement. So it could be subject to the approval of the other 4 member municipalities.
So follow on that. Yep. If they don't approve it from the Village of North Hudson's standpoint, they're in effect going to be subject to the county tax most likely anyway, or do they still keep their own? I mean, I guess that's more internal workings on a different end, so let's not worry about that question, but.
Well, I can probably.
I already know the answer.
Other discussion? Any other discussion?
I guess I would make a motion to approve the resolution and conditioned upon the approval of all 4 municipalities.
There's been a motion and a second. Other conversation, and I know we have other folks that might want to provide some public comment, possibly? Yep, okay. If there's other people that would like to make public comment, feel free to go up to the podium.
I'm Dan Hansen, County Supervisor. I represent District 12. I'm glad that we've come up with a solution that'll help fund the Hudson Library Association. I think that's it's very, very satisfying to me that we're approaching a solution. However, I'm really concerned that this is going to expose the county, and I would like to recommend real caution that we don't let our exuberance to find a solution outrun our responsibility to protect the county from exposure. And I am not in any way diminishing my concern to fund this library association. I would like nothing more than to have this work. But if there's a chance that the Department of Revenue can come back and fine St. Croix County, even though there's a hold harmless clause in this contract, which I've read in the packet, that could land on municipalities that don't have the funds to do that, then we could have bigger problems. It would land on the county, which that's exposing the county to problems. What is that, $1 million, $1.5 million that we may not have at the time? We would have to take it out of general fund. I don't want to see that happen. I don't want to see it happen to the. So, is there a way that we can confirm? And I know that Mr. Mayor has provided us with a letter, but I would like to figure out a way that we can have really good confirmation that this is going to be rock solid, that it's airtight, that we're not going to have exposure to the county, because the comments that we've gotten from the administrator that it sounds like we're operating in a loophole here, and I don't want to be operating in a loophole. I will argue against this at the county board if in fact it feels, or if we don't have permission from the state, if we're not operating within the limit of the state law. If it's a loophole, then we're exposing the county, and we shouldn't be doing that. So those are my comments. I sure appreciate your time.
Any other public comment? No. All right.
Thank you. I don't know if there's a limit on how many times we can speak here, but understandable. I get that. We have actually, at the city, looked into this. We are covered. Our insurance will cover this if we have a problem. I can't speak for the other municipalities, but we are covered through the League of Municipalities Insurance Protection. So it's something that we've already looked into. Okay.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the risk really falls on the municipalities, not necessarily the county, the way the resolution and the agreement is written. Would that be correct?
That is correct, and that's why we have the indemnification clause in there. So if we are subject to any risk or liability, then we are indemnified by the 4-member municipalities. And in speaking to the supervisor's concerns, Supervisor Hansen's concerns, we did attach to the packet the memorandum from the senior legislative attorney, Eric Mueller, the correspondence from the Department of Public Instruction, the correspondence from the Department of Revenue. Basically, they indicated, they can't give counties legal advice, so make sure to ask your corporation counsel if they think this is legal. As Administrator Witt has indicated, there's no statutory reference that says you cannot do this. It doesn't say you can do it. So it will be a first impression issue if that comes before, the Department of Revenue to say, no, this isn't legal. So that would be something that would be litigated. As of right now, the research that we did as far as Corporation Counsel, my predecessor, Scott Cox, was in contact with the City of Hudson and their legal counsel, and we do believe that it is appropriate to do, but we want to make sure the county is protected, and which is why we pushed for the indemnification clause in the agreement.
Just a quick follow-up. So we recognize the risk exists, but it's the municipalities that are taking on that risk, and by signing on to the agreement, they're accepting that level of risk, and so the county is basically facilitating the agreement without that risk. I think, would that be a fair statement?
Correct. We still would be subject to the penalty, as I understand from Administrator Witt, but then we'd ask the member municipalities to indemnify us, or basically pay for that tax that we would have to pay. So there is protection there with the indemnification clause.
Other comments from members? Supervisor Counter.
Has any of this did we explore anything with the counties association, looking at this at all to get any input from them?
From the documentation that I've reviewed, I do not believe we asked for an opinion from the Wisconsin Counties Association. I could reach out to Attorney Andy Phillips and ask for his opinion on that, but we haven't prior to today's date.
I'm just wondering with, everything that's going on with this, if we have a little bit of time, if they haven't made that decision in the one municipality yet, if we would have an opportunity here to maybe see if we could get a quick review from them, and if they have anybody that, if they have anybody in mind that they may be able to refer this to that could become an obstacle to it.
What is the timeline for this as far as the need for a response from the county board administrator Witt?
Last year, October was too late. That's why we're here in May. So really, I think July, August probably at the latest. So that's when we're wrapping up budget and really solidifying things. So that would be when I would really want to or need to know.
So if we were to consider Supervisor Counter's suggestion, that would give us enough time to bring that back, let's say. Do we have any estimate as far as when we might get a response from WCA if we were to proceed in that manner? Or, I know you haven't asked them, but in general?
I will ask them tomorrow and see how long it would take to get an opinion. Obviously, if this committee wants to postpone deciding on that resolution, there'd be a motion to postpone. But I would hope, I would obviously urge them to get an opinion to us as quick as possible. But I could identify, the next administration committee meeting as a deadline. At least that would give them a little bit of time or a time frame to get an opinion back to us if they can give us one.
Well, I just want to, I want to comment that I was very excited about the potential for this resolution and this solution. I would love to see our library supported, and I think this potentially gives us a path. But I do think it's also in the county's best interest to make sure it's protected and make sure the municipalities can speak for themselves, of course. But if there's an opportunity for us to get more input, it's something that I think might be valuable. But we do have a motion on the floor right now, unless that we want to take action on, unless there is a potential to, if there's interest in postponing the decision.
If I may.
Supervisor Burning.
So by putting it in motion pending, and it still has to go to the county board for approval, at this point, we could get it out of this committee at least, come to an agreement, get it to a point where it's at the county, then that way at least the four municipalities understand that the county's got resolved, at least from this committee's standpoint. And I can tell you that from the library standpoint, it helps us in what direction we're going to go. Until then, the Hudson area library stays kind of like, I don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. So if we choose to delay it from this committee, then that's just going to delay it from the county board, which is going to delay it for the municipalities and for the library to plan. So I would say let's get it out of this committee and let's see what what Corp Council and County Association comes back with. And then the county board has to make the ultimate decision anyway. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you, Supervisor Burning. I suppose at that point, if we were still waiting on a response from WCA, or we could postpone a decision at the county board if that was something, and then we might have more answers. Okay. Any other discussion? Supervisor?
Again, I'm very much in support of this, so I don't want to make it any other way, and I'm not trying a delay tactic. my biggest concern is to protect both the county and for sure the municipalities. They don't have the budget to work with a big fine or something that comes in. Fortunately, you have insurance for the one, so that's a, that at least it'd help. But if there's something that comes up and, we don't know the status of the other members, I would, again, I feel I'm definitely in favor of this, want to see it happen, but want to do it in a way that it at least has seen the county associations at least put their eyes on it if possible. We may not have a long, lengthy brief, but I think their first sense, they would know, whether to pursue this or not and be able to give us a quick legal back. It's just that they probably wouldn't have all the documents quickly. So I guess I would be in favor if we would consider doing this, but doing it conditionally, that we at least get the two things. One would be that we have consensus of all of the members of the Library Association that haven't, especially since one hasn't voted yet. And then the second thing would be just a once-over from the county's association.
So Supervisor Counter, are you suggesting an amendment to the motion? Because I believe the motion only includes the approval of the Village of North Hudson, correct? The current motion? Yeah.
Yeah, the way I have the motion is that approved by all of the municipalities.
Right.
So I think there's only one that's outstanding, though.
So are you proposing an amendment to the motion? To include the WCA piece?
Yes.
Okay.
Point of inquiry.
Yes, Supervisor Burning?
What is the amendment? I don't know what the amendment is.
The amendment would be just, if you've already have the thing with is it North Hudson that has to do the approval yet? So that would be, that's already taken care of. So it would be just that a review from the county's association attorney and a quick once-over to give a snapshot legal advice as to whether they think this would sink or fly if it goes through. So they know they have their fingers in with a lot more people that are state legislators and everybody else. And the concern is if somebody would have heartache against it up front, they may have some background knowledge that we have no idea about. And so it's just a protective measure, and it's a first glance. So hopefully this would be just a few-day thing. It wouldn't be something where we're looking for a legal brief.
Supervisor Burning?
Need a second before discussion.
I will second the motion.
Okay, actually, my question is, I still don't know what the motion is. Is it just requiring a
typed it
legal
this
opinion? Okay. Sorry, I just didn't know.
Fair enough.
Moved by Supervisor Counter, seconded by Chair Cook, to amend the approval of the resolution to also be conditional upon WCA legal review. That's how I shortened it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? So we are voting on the amendment first to include WCA legal review onto the additional motion, on the initial motion, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. So any other discussion on the original motion with the amendment? Or the original motion? Administrator Witt.
Just one more thing to point out so you guys know. the numbers in the agreement are last year's numbers, and we've highlighted all those because we want to update those. So we won't have those new numbers until probably early July.
Normally, we get all of the requests by the end of June into the beginning of July. So with the admin committee now being the second week in July, I don't know if we'll have all of the numbers ready to go by that meeting, but we'll get them as soon as possible. Otherwise, it wouldn't be until August.
And these numbers are purely mathematically based. There's no subjectiveness to them. The math will tell me what they are once I get all of the data in. I just wanted you guys to be aware you're not approving a specific amount. You're approving basically the formula, and we will plug those numbers in once they're known. I just wanted to be clear that you understood that.
All right, thank you for that clarification. Supervisor Counter.
So with that, I know we didn't have the actual calculation of how you came up with the numbers. You explained it well tonight, so I have a lot better understanding of it. But for the future then, we would use the county's current formulas that they do countywide. This is for all future years, we would use that same formula.
Yeah, so the agreement is on a one-year basis because the election to be exempt from library tax is an annual choice that municipalities can make. That's one of the main reasons why this agreement is only for 1 year at a time. So the numbers then are based upon prior year's actual cost and library usage. And so the rural circulation is purely a mathematical calculation based upon the number of items circulated, the cost per circulation item. So yes, we will use those numbers then to calculate it, and then if this agreement is approved again the following year, those again would be updated with new numbers based upon this year's then usage.
Supervisor Counter.
So the last question, when I was looking through, did it, I may have missed it in there, but did it state the startup and the sunset of the agreement?
I can answer that question. So the highlighted areas where we have 2022, each year that has to be updated. So, I mean, we could put it clearer that it's year to year, but because we're only addressing 1 year at a time, it's implied that it's only for a year. So because we don't know the numbers until the next year, so then we'll have to do one for 2023 and so on.
All right, any other discussion? Are we ready to vote? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion's carried. Thank you. All right, our next business item, consideration of tax deed bids.
County Clerk Christine.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, County Clerk
Hi.
Christine.
So we did get 2 bids on the property. We did open them this morning, myself and Denise and Heather. The bid, the highest bid was for $202,000. I don't know if you want any information about the other bid, but that was the higher of the 2 bids.
And then Denise might be able to speak to a little bit, or I can tell the committee. So the highest bid was $202,000 after all the expenses. So the total expenses with all the taxes, special charges, interest, publication, recording fees, the advertising, the cleaning, and the realtor's fees come to $49,091.79. And so those fees plus the $30 recording fee will be taken out of those proceeds, and then anything that's left over will be sent to the previous homestead owner. Yes, and there is a portion that we will keep pursuant to the statute, so I apologize. Denise just reminded me of that. So there's a calculation based in statute, and so there's a percentage we get to keep before giving net proceeds to the prior homeowner. And I don't have that calculation for you tonight, but we will do that calculation. And then, once that's all done, the highest bidder has 30 days to pay the balance that is owed, pay the recording fee. We will draft the quitclaim deed to sign over to them, and then Denise will work with Christine to make sure all the fees and costs and penalties and interest are paid, and then whatever percentage that the county gets to retain, and then cut a check to the prior owner for the net proceeds.
All right, any questions for Christine? Yeah, Supervisor Long.
I guess we did quite better than the initial, what was the realtor that assessed? Yeah.
147.
So
I'm
that's,
glad we went up in our.
glad we went up,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And after you made the decision to set it at 175,000, the appraiser came back and appraised it at 233,000, the tax appraisal. So 202,000 is probably a good amount for that, especially with the things that need to be fixed, but that is the highest bid.
I guess I would move to accept the highest bid.
Second by Supervisor Burning. Any further discussion? No? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are to our final business item, discuss process for reviewing mandated services. And I believe, I know this came up at our last board meeting, and I believe Administrator Witt has some information to share with us.
Yeah, I broke the report out to show just the mandated services that would be pertinent to this committee's jurisdiction. So these are the different departments, and you can see the attached report that lists all the mandated services. And we call it mandated services, but both mandated and discretionary services are in here. We just tell you then which ones are mandated. But so the name of the report, I guess, is a little misleading. But anyways, what I wanted to talk to you guys about was what process you wanted to review this. The resolution that we approved gave us 12 months to go through it. Anything we can do before the 2023 budget, which we're really down to just a few months before we were finalizing that, we could incorporate. Otherwise, it would be not impacting us until the 2024 budget. I guess my recommendation, what makes sense to me logically, is just going department by department and just going down the list, breaking it into those sections. As you can see, we would have, what was that, 7 or 8 different departments there. Maybe some of them might take more than 1 month to review, but that would, if we took one department at a time, that would get us through it within the next year.
And is that the same approach you're suggesting to the other committees as well?
You know, it's up to each committee how they want to do it. So I don't try to tell you how you have to do it. I just want you to do it. So.
Supervisor Long.
Yeah, I think some of this too would be maybe depending upon future agendas at the discretion of Chair Cook. Maybe we could tackle, kind of like we did with the procedures, and we could, maybe if we have a light agenda, we can tackle a couple, or maybe we have a heavy agenda and we need to put it off till the following month. So I think a lot can be left to your discretion and to fit this in here over the next, 6-7 months. I don't think it'd be that difficult.
Okay.
Any other comments? Are you just looking for conversation from us, no actual action?
Yeah,
or?
you don't have to take action on it. If that's the approach you guys are fine with, then that's the way that we'll do it. I just wanted to make sure I had some buy-in before I started putting things on your agenda.
Kind of you, very kind. All right, it looks like everyone, Supervisor Fiedler.
I would only comment that in regard to this,
I had previously, a couple years ago, prepared a number of questions that related to this general topic that could be given to department heads to fill out that reflect their priorities. Things like how much of their budget comes from a tax levy, how much comes from grants, how much is, are they the only people that are providing this service, or are there other entities in the county, be they municipalities or the faith community or somebody else that provides this service? A little bit of a history of those departments and how they've gotten to where they are now with their mandatory and discretionary spending. And I'd be happy to share that with the committee and with Administrator Witt for our potential usage. And if it seemed like it was a good starting point, we could talk about it at our next meeting.
Supervisor Long.
Yeah, some of that background might be really helpful to review prior to a committee meeting on that particular topic, so they've got some background and give them a little better idea for maybe a healthier discussion. So I think that's a good idea.
Okay. All right. So that we are through business items. Any requests for future agenda items? I have a request for a future agenda item. I'd like us to, I'm going to bring back my suggestion about a broadband committee or work group. I do think there's an opportunity for us to look at the study that we had done again and see, and so we can make thoughtful plans for potential future use of our ARPA money. So, no other requests? All right. Announcements or correspondence? Anything? No? All right. Then we'll adjourn the meeting at 5:17. Thank you.